I arrived 5 minutes early like I always do. The driveway was already cluttered with cars, and neighbors' curious eyes peeked over hedges, scanning for glimpses of the chaos they had only heard about. Guests drifted inside the grand hall in whispers of cream and silver, laughter tucked carefully under polite smiles. I took a slow breath and stepped out of the car, one hand gripping the small velvet box that held the wedding rings. My son's request, not mine. He had said it mattered, passing them down as a gesture of legacy, of respect for family traditions I had kept alive for decades. I was halfway to the front doors when I saw him. Nathan stood there, perfectly straight in his designer suit, hands fidgeting like they had a mind of their own. Elena was beside him, poised and polished, lips pressed tight, eyes locking on mine as if to say nothing, to absorb nothing. He strode toward me with purpose, blocking the entrance like a wall that no one could pass. "Mom," he said, voice low and urgent, "look, this isn't the right time." My stomach sank into a hollow I hadn't felt since I lost my husband. I lifted the velvet box, the rings heavy and warm in my hand. "You forgot them." He took the box from me without so much as brushing my fingers. "Elena's." "She's just stressed," he said quickly. "She wanted today to be simple, peaceful. Maybe it's better if you go." I said it wasn't a question. "I'll call you tomorrow." The ending of this story will bring you a deep, elegant satisfaction that lingers long after the final word. But before we dive into this gripping, high-voltage drama, take a moment to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support is my greatest strength. All right, are you ready for the moment when arrogance gets crushed under a silent, icy smile? Let's begin. Please don't make this harder than it already is. I glanced past him just once. I could see the chandeliers, the floral arrangements, the flicker of candlelight. No one else noticed us standing there. I nodded. "Have a beautiful day." Then I turned, walked back to the car, silent. I didn't cry. Not in the car, not on the winding road home, not even when the sky darkened with early spring clouds and the old oak trees bent with the wind like they knew my mood. At home, I hung my coat on the same hook I had used for years. The house didn't ask questions. The floor didn't care who I was that day. I made tea, set a cup for one, and drank it quietly. Silence has a weight, I thought. My silence was loud enough. The next morning, just after 9 o'clock, the phone rang. Once, twice. I let it ring thrice before I answered. Nathan's voice, cautious, lighter than yesterday, broke through the line. "Hey, so listen. The photographer wants some portraits this afternoon. Elena and I thought the garden would be perfect. You know, the light, the roses, the magnolias. It would mean a lot." I glanced at the old brass key by my mug, still engraved with my father's handwriting. "You want the garden?" I said. "Just for the pictures." "Elena loves the arbor by the fountain, and we could do a few inside the house, too. Just a few shots, it'll be quick." I moved toward the window. The garden looked the same as it always did. The tulips hadn't wilted in shame. My voice was level. "Ask your wife." There was a pause. Long enough to remind me how patient silence can be. "All right," he said finally. "We just thought, okay, I'll let her know." He hung up first. I returned to my tea. It had gone cold, but I didn't bother to warm it again. Outside, the wind scattered early petals across the porch. That night, sleep refused me. I wandered the hallways, past the guest rooms, the study, the library, rooms frozen in time. At midnight, I opened my laptop. Social media rarely tempted me, but curiosity had its grip. Elena had posted a filtered photo. She in white, Nathan behind her, sunlight glinting off the marble fountain, roses framing them. Caption: "Perfect start, perfect day, perfect family, no disruptions." There was no mention of me, no trace that I had ever been part of the day, part of their lives. I closed the laptop, touched the key around my neck, and clipped it to the chain. That morning, gravel crunched under unfamiliar shoes. 2 sets of footsteps approached, confident and entitled. I opened the door before they reached it. "Morning," Nathan said, voice bright but lacking warmth. Elena stood by him, holding a leather-bound folder, lips drawn thin. "We thought we'd bring something exciting," she said. I stepped aside. "Let them in." They sat at the kitchen table. I stayed standing. Elena opened the folder first. "We've been thinking," she began. "The garden, the house, this estate, incredible potential," Nathan chimed in. "With the wedding and everyone asking if we could rent it for photos, events, retreats." The tone was rehearsed, polished, like a script practiced in mirrors. Elena leaned in. It could be a perfect venue, rustic, elegant, marketable, a little investment. We could modernize the guest wing, lighting, facilities. I waited. She smiled again. Of course, it wouldn't be just for others. We'd stay, oversee it. Nathan nodded. And me? I asked. They exchanged a glance. Not surprised, just practiced. You'd be welcome, Elena said, but maybe this is an opportunity to transition. You've said winters are getting harder. Nathan reached for my hand. I didn't give it. Where exactly would I go? I asked. They shared a silent script. Lovely retirement cottages near Riverview, Elena said. Private, community care, no pressure. I looked out the window. The pear trees needed pruning, hydrangeas late to bloom. You've been busy, I said. Elena's smile was false, rehearsed certainty. Nathan avoided my eyes. I'll think about it, I said. They left the folder boldly on the table. Harrington Estate Development Proposal. When they drove off, I didn't touch it. I walked to the old study, my husband's study, door creaking slightly under my hand. The room smelled faintly of ink and leather, the ghost of years past. Something was off. The chair angled, cabinet drawer slightly ajar, folders leaned unevenly. The survey maps of the property, once stacked by decade, had a gaping absence where the updated northern field map should be. I sifted through the remaining papers, brushing empty space with trembling fingers. On the desk, an old binder shifted, pages scattered like hurried footsteps. Contracts, receipts, tax papers, nothing dramatic, but a trace of intrusion, of searching. I remembered a small compartment beneath the shelf, carved by my father, long forgotten. My fingers found a brittle envelope marked in his handwriting, for Marin, only if needed. I opened it with reverence. Inside was a letter, notarized clause reinforcing that I alone controlled the estate until my death or written consent. No shared authority, no circumvention. The date startled me, filed quietly after Nathan's first year of college, before Elena, before this drama. I folded it back into the envelope, returned it to the metal box with our marriage certificate, original deed, other estate papers, locked it, key on my chain. The study lights remained off. The house felt awake, not threatened. That afternoon, a knock sounded, gravel shifting under measured steps. Elena called the next day. Breezy tone, cafe date suggestion, small talk and lentil soup. I agreed, playing the part. She arrived early, scanning menus like she owned my patience. Small talk evaporated. We know this place means a lot to you, she said. I nodded, but it could be more. Your garden has charm, authenticity. With upgrades, corporate retreats, weddings, you wouldn't handle it. You've earned rest. I'm not tired, I said. Her smile faltered, edge of irritation showing. They left papers behind, promises, gentle coercion. I returned home, walked the hallways, held the old key in my palm, felt the weight of legacy, of authority. That night, I slept with windows open, listening to wind through the oaks, knowing the orchard, the house, the estate, my life's work, remained mine, held with quiet, steady hands. The following morning, I woke to sunlight brushing the garden like it had never seen my sorrow, as if the world continued in polite ignorance of yesterday's betrayal. I lingered at the window, tea in hand, watching the roses sway, the hydrangeas stiff and reluctant to bloom, the wind tousling the tulips like playful children. The driveway remained empty, and the air was quiet, save for the distant hum of a lawnmower down the lane. I moved slowly, dressing with deliberate care, feeling the weight of the past weeks in every muscle, every cautious step. Breakfast was silent. A slice of toast and a soft-boiled egg, the warmth of the tea seeping through my fingers and reminding me that some things, at least, were steady. I wandered to the study again, the air here thick with old paper and ink, the scent of leather like a whisper of my husband's presence. The desk, once a fortress of my husband's mind, remained untouched since the day I had restored the papers to the safe metal box. I sat in the chair, letting my hands hover over the worn surface, imagining his calm voice guiding decisions, showing me patience, showing me authority without the need for force. The phone rang just as I was letting these memories settle around me. It was Henry, our long-retired family lawyer, the one who tended to the garden more than courtrooms now. "Marin," he said in his careful tone, "you might want to come by." I frowned, sensing the weight in his voice before he spoke again. I was going through some old files, he continued, and I found something your father left. Said it should reach you only if anyone ever tried to encroach on your rights. I set the tea down, its warmth leaving a ring on the table like a memory. I'll be there, I said. Driving into town, I felt the estate shrink behind me in the rearview mirror. A pocket of my life fenced off from the world. The folder waited on Henry's desk, sealed, the paper older, worn, handwriting deliberate. He gave a small shrug. Your father asked me to hold on to it. Said it was just in case. I opened it carefully, the envelope crackling like autumn leaves. Inside was a letter, short but firm. Marin, if you're reading this, he had written, it means someone is trying to take what you've earned. You owe no surrender to those who pretend to love only when it benefits them. Protect it. Protect yourself. Henry's quiet eyes met mine. You know what to do, he said. I nodded, feeling the gravity of my father's foresight settle in my chest. That afternoon, I updated my will. Every clause, every boundary, every condition of inheritance, listed with meticulous precision. I added language even my father hadn't used. Guarding against coercion, guardianship, forced transfer. Control, I realized, isn't about dominance. It's about preparation, about peace. That night, I returned home and walked the estate again, keychain cold against my palm, wind threading through the trees, reminding me that the orchard had always been alive, patient, loyal. 2 days later, tires crunched gravel. Only one car, only one figure. Elena, alone, clipboard in hand, heels clicking against stones as if she had rehearsed this walk 1,000 times. I opened the gate before she could speak. I wanted to talk without distractions, she said briskly. This is moving forward, Marin, with or without your cooperation. I said nothing, letting the silence do the work. We've spoken to a contractor, she pressed on. The barn, the driveway, fencing, irrigation, house. Everything would be redesigned, repurposed. Logan, she meant Nathan, would live on-site part-time. You could stay or relocate, all expenses covered. Freedom, she said softly, almost convincingly. I let her words pass through like leaves on the wind. We paused at the path, the orchard standing silent witness. I reached forward and opened the gate wider. Elena tilted her head, uncertain. I think we're done here, I said. She lingered a beat, lips parted like she had more to say, then turned, walking back to her car. Dust rose behind her like smoke curling in surrender. That night, the house exhaled, the wind weaving through oaks, maples, tulips. Sleep finally found me. Weeks passed quietly. No calls, no footsteps, no reminders of intrusion. The estate held its rhythm, steady, forgiving, patient. Then Nathan returned. No suit, no folder, no rehearsed voice. 4 weeks since I closed the gate behind Elena. He moved slowly, his eyes shadowed, hair unkempt, shirt wrinkled like he had been carrying the weight of unspoken truths. I opened the door without a word. He followed, pausing in the doorway as if it weren't yet his right to enter. I pulled out a chair, sat. He took one across from me cautiously, deliberately. She left, he said, after long silence. I waited. She claimed I wasn't ambitious anymore, that I had let small things ruin everything. Still, I said nothing. He looked down at his hands. I pushed you away, he admitted. I let her speak for me, decide for me. I knew it was wrong, but I thought maybe she saw something I couldn't. Maybe the estate really did need change. I nodded once, then moved to fill the kettle. Silence wasn't sharp anymore, just worn around the edges, like a path forgotten but still there. I set 2 mugs on the table. Coffee, no sugar, just like before. He held it like a lifeline, hands wrapped around it, careful. Words weren't needed. Some people don't need forgiveness spoken aloud. They need presence, trust, patience. The next morning, gloves on, we moved to the southern orchard row together. I handed him pruners. He didn't need instruction. The land taught him, and he listened. He asked about root systems, grafting, bloom cycles. I answered as needed, but mostly let the soil, the vines, the wind show him. Later, I removed the key from the chain, held it in my palm, feeling weight and meaning. Lighter, not because it mattered less, but because I no longer carried it alone. Days bled into weeks like this. I watched him adapt to the rhythm of the estate. Unspoken respect growing between us. Quiet acknowledgement that trust was earned, not demanded. Then came a morning when the air smelled of rain, thick and fertile. Nathan and I walked the rows together, silent, listening to the land awaken. He asked about the old greenhouse. I guided him inside, showing how to prepare soil, how to layer warmth and light for seedlings. He moved with care, hands learning the language of the estate, muscles remembering the motions that had once been my father's, alone. At noon, we paused. Sunlight fell across the table, casting warm lines over soil-stained gloves, pruners, cups of water. I said nothing. He said nothing. Presence, I realized, was enough. Later, in the afternoon, the front gate clicked, gravel shifting. A car idled. I did not look. When footsteps approached, they were cautious. One set, Elena. Alone, clipboard once again in hand. She stood by the gate, heels clicking with rehearsed confidence, voice brisk. "I wanted to speak without distractions," she said. "This is moving forward with or without your cooperation." I didn't reply. Silence stretched, long enough for the orchard to breathe. "We've already spoken to a contractor," she continued. "Barn, driveway, irrigation, fencing, house, all scheduled. Nathan and I will live on-site part-time. You can stay or relocate comfortably. All expenses covered." "Freedom," she offered softly. I let the words flow past, a window she thought was open. I reached for the gate, opened it wide, slow, deliberate. Lena's head tilted, uncertain. "I think we're done here," I said. Gate closing behind her, the finality was unshakable. Dust rose behind her car. The estate inhaled again, patient and steady. That night, the wind threaded through the trees, curling petals around the porch like whispered congratulations. Sleep came easily. Days passed, sun rising and falling without intrusion. Nathan did not move back into the house immediately. He worked in the fields, in the garden, stacking wood, pruning trees, learning the land's rhythms. I prepared coffee, placed it on the porch, silent offering. Weeks passed in this quiet partnership. Trust blossomed slowly, not forced, not hurried. Each evening, sitting under the elm, watching sunlight spill across the orchard, we shared no words, but a language existed between us. Understanding, respect, patience. One night, after stacking firewood, Nathan asked quietly, "Will the keys ever be mine?" I touched the chain around my neck, the old brass key cold beneath my collarbone, a relic of legacy, of responsibility. "When you're ready to carry what they mean," I said, "not just own what they unlock." He nodded. No argument, no protest. Some doors cannot open with metal alone. Morning found us back in the southern rows. Gloves on, pruners in hand, we walked together, side by side, the rhythm of the orchard guiding us. He did not need instruction anymore. The land taught him. He listened, he respected, he adapted. The next night, I placed the key beside my bed, briefly, holding it in my palm, feeling the weight, feeling the meaning. Lighter, not because the legacy mattered less, but because it was shared now, earned, understood. Weeks passed in quiet harmony, the orchard breathing around us like it had always known how to keep secrets and teach lessons. Nathan did not move back into the house immediately. He worked in the fields, in the garden, stacking wood, pruning trees, learning the land's rhythm, and I watched him, silent, letting the land speak for both of us. The morning light fell over rows of pear and apple trees, petals swirling in the gentle wind, and I felt a patience I had long forgotten. Coffee in hand, I would watch him bend over vines, see the way he studied roots, soil, and leaves, as if the estate itself whispered the instructions. And slowly, I realized trust was growing between us, not the kind forced by words, but earned in sweat and quiet work. One afternoon, the sound of tires crunching gravel startled me. I set down my tea and walked to the window. A car idled at the driveway, and my heart sank a little, expecting the rehearsed confidence of Elena or another intrusion. But it was only Henry, our old family lawyer, a file in hand. Sleeves dusted with soil from the garden he tended more than courtrooms now. "Maureen," he said, voice careful, "I found something you need to see." I grabbed my coat and drove into town, the estate shrinking behind me in the rearview mirror. The file was already on his desk. I opened it carefully, finding documents my father had left for me, precautionary, protective, unseen by anyone else. A note, for Marin, only if needed. Inside were letters and notarized clauses reinforcing my sole authority over the estate, the land, and every decision tied to it. No shared authority, no loopholes, no circumvention. Henry gave me a quiet look. "You know what to do," he said. I nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle in my chest. That afternoon, I returned to the estate and walked the garden, key in hand, thinking of the weight it represented. Control is not about dominance, I reminded myself. It is about preparation, about peace, about knowing what is yours and keeping it safe. 2 days later, tires crunched the gravel again. Only one car, only one figure. Elena, alone, clipboard tucked under her arm, heels clicking against stones with practiced precision. I opened the gate before she could speak. I wanted to speak without distractions, she said briskly. This is moving forward, Marin, with or without your cooperation. I remained silent, letting the wind in the orchard do the talking. We've spoken to a contractor, she continued. Barn, driveway, fencing, irrigation, house, all scheduled. Nathan and I will live on-site part-time. You can stay or relocate comfortably. All expenses covered. Freedom, she said softly, almost convincing. I let her words pass. Watched dust rise behind her as she retreated. That evening, the air smelled of rain, thick with promise. Nathan and I walked the southern orchard rows together. Gloves on, pruners in hand, no words were needed. He asked about the old greenhouse. I showed him, teaching where necessary, letting the land guide him. He moved with care, hands learning the language the estate had always whispered to me. Later, the front gate clicked again, gravel shifting. A car idled. Elena, alone again, clipboard in hand, heels clicking with rehearsed confidence. I opened the gate, letting the silence stretch. I think we're done here, I said, slow, deliberate. She lingered, lips parted like she had more to say, then turned, walking back to her car. Dust rose behind her. The orchard exhaled. Patient, steady. Nathan did not move back into the house yet. He stayed in the fields, working beside me, learning, adapting. Coffee set quietly on the porch in the morning, offering nothing but presence. Weeks passed in this rhythm. One evening, after stacking firewood, Nathan asked softly, "Will the keys ever be mine?" I touched the chain around my neck, brass cool beneath my collarbone, relic of legacy and responsibility. When you're ready to carry what they mean, I said, not just own what they unlock. He nodded. No argument, no protest. Some doors cannot open with metal alone. Morning came. Gloves on, pruners in hand, we walked the southern rows together. He did not need instruction. The land taught him. He listened. The next night, I held the key in my palm, lighter not because the legacy mattered less, but because it was shared, earned, understood. Weeks later, the estate stirred with activity. The land breathing, birds calling, the orchard teaching patience. Nathan learned quickly, not rushing, not assuming, respecting the rhythm. I watched him. Coffee in hand, pride quiet, steady. Then came a morning of tension. Gravel under tires again. Only one car, only one figure, Elena. Clipboard in hand, lips tight. I opened the gate. She spoke fast, rehearsed, this time sharper. We've scheduled contractors, she said. Barn, driveway, fencing, irrigation, house. Nathan and I will live on site. You can relocate comfortably. All expenses covered. Freedom. I said nothing, letting the silence expand. Her heels clicked on the stones. You're not listening, she said, voice edged with irritation. I opened the gate wider. I think we're done here, I said. She paused, uncertain. Then she turned. Dust rose behind her, and the estate exhaled again. Quiet. Patient. That night, the wind threaded through trees, petals swirling around the porch. Sleep came easily. Days passed, sun rising and falling. Nathan continued to work alongside me, respecting the land, learning the rhythms. Silence became our language. Then one evening, after stacking firewood, we sat under the elm, sunlight spilling over the orchard. He asked, "Will the keys ever be mine?" I touched the chain, the old brass key resting against my collarbone. "When you're ready," I said, "not just to own what they unlock." He nodded, understanding settling in him. The land taught, he listened, adapted. Each morning, gloves on, pruners in hand, walking rows together. Lessons from soil, roots, vines. Later that night, I placed the key beside my bed, held it in my palm, feeling weight, meaning shared responsibility. Lighter, not less significant. The orchard, the house, the estate, our legacy, held steady, patient, alive. Then, unexpected, gravel again. Tires, but different. A new figure. A man unfamiliar. Nathan glanced at me, hands pausing. I stepped outside. "He's a contractor," Nathan whispered. Elena sent him ahead, clipboard notes ready. I opened the gate. The man spoke politely, offering papers, plans, schedules. I listened. He expected me to comply, to give approval, to be moved. I said nothing. Silence again held the power. The orchard, the house, trees, wind, birds, they bore witness. The man hesitated. I reached for the gate, opened it wider, slow, deliberate. "You may leave," I said. He looked surprised, then turned. Gravel crunched behind him as he left. The estate exhaled. Night came. Windows open, wind moving through trees, petals swaying. Nathan and I walked rows in quiet. Trust had grown, patience established. Some doors cannot be opened with metal alone. Presence, understanding, respect, quiet patience. These were the keys. The next morning, sun spilling over rows, gloves on, pruners in hand, Nathan worked beside me, silent, learning, understanding. I watched, coffee in hand, heart steady, quiet pride settling. Weeks passed like this, rhythm of orchard, rhythm of life. Then one morning, I woke to the sound of tires. Only one car, only one figure. Nathan beside me. Elena, clipboard tucked under arm. I opened the gate, letting silence speak. "We're done here," I said. She paused, lips parted, uncertainty flashing in her eyes, then turned. Dust rose behind her as she left. The orchard exhaled. I sipped coffee. Nathan moved through rows, pruners in hand, the land taut. He listened. Patience, trust, presence. These were our language. That night, key in palm, brass cool, lighter because it was shared, weight still there, meaning intact. Estate, orchard, legacy, alive, patient, steady. The days that followed were quiet, almost painfully so, like the estate itself was holding its breath, waiting for the next storm to arrive. Nathan did not speak much, only when necessary, and even then his words were measured, careful, weighed against the rhythm of the orchard. I found a strange comfort in that. The estate had a language of its own, older than Nathan or Elena or me. It spoke through the bending of branches, the way the tulips tilted their heads to the sun, the faint hum of bees moving through the magnolias. I watched Nathan work, gloves worn, hands calloused, pruning the rows, stacking wood, checking irrigation lines, moving as if the estate itself were teaching him what he needed to know. Some mornings we would pause under the old elm tree, sun filtering through the leaves, the orchard quiet except for the occasional crow or distant wind. I would hand him coffee, steaming, no sugar, and he would drink it like it was a ritual, a way to honor the morning, honor the work, honor the land. One afternoon, while inspecting the northern field, we noticed stakes that had not been there before, small flags marking areas of the orchard Nathan had never tended. Someone had been in the north field. I did not panic, did not speak, simply gestured for Nathan to follow. The soil was disturbed, but there were no footprints, no sign of who had been there, only the marks in the dirt, reminders that intrusion could happen, even in a place that was mine. That night, I walked the estate alone, key in hand, chain resting against my collarbone. The moon illuminated the orchard in pale silver light, casting shadows that danced with the branches, whispering secrets that only the estate could tell. I thought of my father, of his foresight, of the letters he had left, and of the envelope Henry had brought me. Protection, he had said. Guard it. The words felt alive in my hand, in the weight of the key, in the quiet presence of the orchard. Nathan joined me later that evening, moving quietly, not stepping on the shadows, not speaking unless necessary. We walked side by side, the silence a comfort rather than a void. Eventually, he spoke. "Do you think she'll try again?" His voice low, unsure. I did not answer immediately. I let the wind carry my response. "Some doors cannot be opened with words alone," I said finally. "They must be earned, understood, respected." He nodded. Understanding passed between us without further speech. The next morning, the estate felt alive in a new way. Birds sang louder, tulips tilted with purpose. The wind carried the scent of early blooms like a promise. Nathan worked in the north field, gloves on, pruners in hand, moving carefully, respectfully, learning the estate's rhythm. I watched from the porch, coffee in hand, letting the sun warm my face, listening to the quiet hum of life that was ours, that had been ours before any intrusion, and would remain ours long after. Then came the sound of tires again, gravel under pressure. My heart tightened, a reflex older than reason. Only one car, only one figure, Elena, alone. Clipboard in hand, heels clicking, a voice rehearsed, confident. I opened the gate. "We need to discuss the estate," she said, brisk, sharper than before. I said nothing. Silence stretched, the orchard absorbing it, holding it steady. She continued. "Contractors are scheduled. Renovations, expansions, rerouting irrigation, barn upgrades, guest facilities. Nathan and I will be on site part-time. You may stay or relocate comfortably. All expenses covered." "Freedom," she said softly. I let the words pass through like wind through leaves. They did not touch me. The estate held me. I reached for the gate, opened it wider. "I think we're done here," I said. Uncertainty flashed across her face. Then she turned, walked back to her car. Dust rose, then settled. The estate exhaled, patient, steady. Nathan did not move back into the house yet. He worked in the fields side by side with me, learning, adapting, absorbing the rhythm. Days passed in this quiet partnership. Coffee, gloves, pruners, soil, roots. Trust grew silently, steadily. One evening, after stacking firewood, Nathan asked again, softly, "Will the keys ever be mine?" I touched the chain, brass cool against my skin. "When you're ready," I said, "not just to own what they unlock." He nodded. No argument, no protest. Understanding passed between us like sunlight filtering through branches. The next morning, we walked the southern orchard rows together. Gloves on, pruners in hand. No instructions were needed. The land taught. He listened, adapted, respected. Days turned into weeks. The estate, the orchard, the house, all held steady, patient, alive. Then unexpectedly, another car. Gravel, tires, slow approach. Nathan glanced at me. I walked to the gate. A man. Unfamiliar, polite, professional, papers in hand. "Contractor," Nathan whispered. Elena sent him ahead. I listened as he explained work schedules, project outlines, expected approvals. I said nothing. Silence again held authority. The man hesitated, unsure, then turned. Gravel crunching behind him, fading. The orchard exhaled. That night, wind threaded through the trees, petals curling around the porch. Nathan and I walked the orchard, gloves on, pruners in hand. Presence, patience, understanding, our language. Some doors cannot be opened with metal alone. Weeks later, quiet mornings, coffee on the porch, observing Nathan as he worked, hand-eye coordination sharpening, respect for the estate growing. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived. No envelope, no signature, just typed words on estate letterhead. It was a notice of legal inquiry. Subtle, polite, but unmistakable in tone. The estate's management could be challenged. I read it slowly, let the words settle in the weight of my chest. Nathan, observing, did not speak. I folded the letter, slipped it into the safe metal box with the key, the envelope Henry had brought, the papers my father had left. Protection, I reminded myself, guard it. That evening, walking the orchard under the fading light, Nathan asked softly, "How do we stop them?" I did not answer immediately. The wind, the birds, the rustle of leaves, they spoke more clearly than I ever could. Preparation, patience, presence, that is how we stop them. He nodded. Understanding passed silently. The next morning, Nathan worked in the northern rows, carefully, deliberately, gloves worn, pruners in hand. I observed, coffee in hand, heart steady. The orchard had its rhythm, its lessons. I taught only when necessary, corrected only when needed. Trust and respect were growing like seedlings in soil. Days passed. The estate held firm. No vehicles, no unexpected visitors, only the wind, the birds, the rustling leaves, and the quiet presence of work and understanding. One evening, under the elm, Nathan and I shared a brief silence. The sun dipped low, spilling gold across the orchard, illuminating dust motes, petals, soil. He asked again quietly, "Will the keys ever be mine?" I held the chain brass against my skin. "When you're ready," I said, "not just to own what they unlock." He nodded, finally understanding. Presence, patience, understanding, the estate had taught him. That night, I held the key in my hand, feeling weight and meaning, lighter because it was shared, heavier because it symbolized legacy, responsibility, trust. The orchard exhaled, the estate held firm. Weeks passed quietly. Nathan continued to learn, to adapt, to respect the rhythm. I continued to observe, patient, steady, heart quiet, confident. Then came the sound of tires, gravel under pressure. Only one car, only one figure. Elena. Clipboard in hand, heels clicking, voice rehearsed, confident. I opened the gate. "We've scheduled renovations," she said. "Contractors, barn, driveway, fencing, irrigation, house. Nathan and I will live on site part-time. You can relocate comfortably. All expenses covered. Freedom." I said nothing. The orchard listened. Dust rose behind her as she walked back to her car. The estate exhaled, steady, patient. Nathan and I moved through the rows, pruners in hand, gloves on. Work silent, trust steady. Lessons learned, presence held. The key rested on the chain, brass cool, meaningful, shared. Some doors cannot be opened with metal alone. The estate had grown quiet in the early hours, a stillness that felt heavier than the usual calm. Nathan was already in the fields, gloves on, pruners in hand, moving carefully among the rows. I stood on the porch, coffee steaming, watching sunlight hit the dew-laden leaves. It was almost sacred, the way the orchard absorbed the morning, breathed with the rhythm of its own history, indifferent to any human dispute. I could feel the past pressing softly against the present, the weight of letters, the careful planning of my father, the vigilance Henry had shown by holding on to the protective documents. It all pulsed quietly beneath my skin, a steady drumbeat of responsibility, legacy, and quiet defiance. As Nathan worked, I wandered to the back hall, the room's silent, dust motes floating in the air, as if the house itself remembered. There were no signs of intrusion, no indication that the world outside still demanded pieces of this life. I walked into the old study, hands hovering over the polished desk, tracing lines where my husband once made notes, signed contracts, calculated the growth of this orchard with the precision of a man who understood both patience and ambition. The safe metal box waited in its corner, key in my hand. I opened it, letting the letters, the deeds, the notarized clauses breathe in the quiet room. Protection. Guard it. Preserve what is yours. The words felt alive, the ink almost vibrating with purpose. Later, as the sun climbed higher, a shadow fell across the porch. Gravel crunched. I didn't need to look. I knew the sound, the cadence, the hesitant approach. It was Nathan, walking toward the house with his boots dusted from the northern rows. He paused, gloves in hand, pruners at his side. "How did you sleep?" I asked, voice quiet. "Restless," he admitted, a hint of guilt in his tone, though the day's work had left him exhausted. I nodded, understanding more than words could express. "The orchard teaches," I reminded him. "It has its own patience, its own rules." We moved through the estate together that morning, walking paths lined with pear trees, observing early buds, checking soil moisture, pruning only where necessary. There was a rhythm now, unspoken, a language shared between the land and those who tended it with respect. Later the doorbell rang. My heart tightened briefly, a reflexive jolt, but I remained still. The estate has a way of showing you what matters, and intrusion has its own weight. Opening the door, I found no one. A single envelope lay on the mat, typed address, formal yet impersonal. I picked it up carefully. Legal correspondence, notifying me of another inquiry into the management of the estate, politely worded, yet unmistakable in intent. I held it close. Let the quiet of the house absorb the weight of those words. Nathan appeared beside me silently, observing. We did not speak immediately. Some battles are won in presence, patience, and preparation, not haste. That evening, after a long day tending the rows, pruning, stacking firewood, we sat under the elm, sun spilling gold across the orchard, highlighting dust, petals, soil. Nathan finally broke the silence. "How do we stop them?" he asked, soft, searching. I touched the chain around my neck, brass key cool beneath my fingers. Preparation, patience, presence. Not the confrontation, but the readiness, the foresight, the quiet strength that has been built over decades. He nodded, understanding. That night, I slept with the windows open, the scent of the orchard threading through the rooms, the wind stirring leaves, petals, the estate itself seeming to guard my rest. Days passed in quiet diligence. Nathan continued learning, adapting, respecting the rhythm. I observed from the porch, coffee in hand, letting the sun warm me, heart steady. Then one morning a letter arrived, thicker than the previous, heavier in tone. Legal inquiry explicit. The estate's management could be challenged. I read it slowly, letting every word settle into the calm center I had cultivated over the weeks. Nathan remained beside me, silent, observing. I folded it carefully, slipping it into the safe metal box, alongside the letters my father had left, the notarized deeds, the protective envelope Henry had delivered. protection. Guard it. Preserve what is yours. Later that afternoon, the air shifted. Tires on gravel, only one car, only one figure. Elena. Clipboard in hand, lips tight, voice rehearsed, confident. I opened the gate. She spoke quickly, expecting reaction, expecting compliance. Contractors are scheduled, she said. Barn, driveway, fencing, irrigation, house renovations. Nathan and I will live on-site part-time. You can relocate comfortably. All expenses covered. Freedom. I remained silent. The orchard held me. Dust rose behind her as she walked away. The estate exhaled. Nathan and I continued our rhythm, gloves on, pruners in hand, moving side by side, learning, teaching, respecting. Weeks passed. The estate breathed, alive and patient. Then one morning, Nathan stopped mid-row, gloves in hand, pruners paused. He looked toward the horizon, where the northern trees swayed against the morning light. Someone had been there. Disturbed soil, footprints faint but present. I observed silently, tracing the path in my mind. Preparation, presence, patience. Not reaction, but understanding, learning, adapting. That evening, under the elm tree, Nathan spoke again. "They are testing us," he said, "seeing what we will allow." I nodded. "Let them test. They will learn. Some lessons cannot be taught quickly. Preparation, patience, presence. These are the keys." The next morning, the orchard sang with dew and sun, branches bending, petals unfurling. We worked in silence. Nathan observed, learned, adapted. The estate whispered instructions. I guided only when necessary, corrected only when needed. Weeks flowed like this, quiet, steady. Then a car arrived, gravel under tires, slow approach. Only one figure. A man, unfamiliar, professional, papers in hand. "Contractor," Nathan whispered. Elena sent him ahead. I opened the gate. He explained work schedules, project outlines, expected approvals. I said nothing. Silence again held authority. The man hesitated, then turned, leaving the gravel to settle behind him. The estate exhaled. Later that evening, I held the key in my hand, feeling weight, meaning, shared responsibility. Lighter, not because the legacy mattered less, but because it was understood, respected, earned. Nathan and I walked the orchard in the fading sun, gloves on, pruners in hand. Presence, patience, understanding. Our language, the language of the estate. Then the unexpected, gravel again, tires approaching. Only one car, only one figure, Elena. Clipboard in hand, voice rehearsed. I opened the gate. She attempted her argument once more, words polished, rehearsed, expecting compliance, expecting hesitation. I said nothing. The orchard listened. Dust rose behind her as she walked away, finality in every step. The estate exhaled. Nathan and I returned to the fields, gloves on, pruners in hand, work silent, steady, shared, the estate, the orchard, the house, alive, patient, ours. Some doors cannot be opened with metal alone. Keys are carried only when understanding has grown. Patience has been earned. Presence has been acknowledged. Weeks flowed in this rhythm. Then one morning, I found a note on the porch, handwritten. No signature, simply, "You cannot stop what is coming." I held it, letting the weight settle. Nathan observed silently. I folded it carefully, placed it in the metal box with the letters, deeds, protective envelopes. Preparation, patience, presence. Not confrontation, but readiness. That night, we walked under the elm, sun setting behind rows of apple and pear trees, shadows stretching long across the soil. Nathan asked softly, "Will the keys ever be mine?" I touched the chain, brass cool beneath my skin. "When you're ready," I said, "not just to own what they unlock." He nodded, understanding passed between us. The orchard whispered around us, wind threading through leaves, petals stirring, presence, patience, understanding. The estate exhaled. That night, I placed the key beside my bed, feeling weight, meaning, legacy shared. Lighter, not less significant, steady, patient, alive. The estate seemed to hold its breath that morning. Sunlight slipped across the orchard in thin golden ribbons, highlighting the dew on leaves, the petals trembling in the gentle breeze. Nathan was already in the fields, gloves on, pruners in hand, moving with a care that had become second nature. I stood on the porch, coffee steaming, feeling the weight of the brass key against my collarbone. Its cool presence a reminder of responsibility, legacy, and the quiet power of patience. Weeks of intrusion attempts, legal letters, and rehearsed arguments had taught me one thing clearly. Control was not about confrontation. It was about presence. preparation, and understanding. And no one, no contract, no lawyer, no spouse of convenience, could override that unless I allowed it. Gravel crunched behind me. I did not flinch. Only one car, only one figure, Elena. Clipboard in hand, voice rehearsed, confident. I opened the gate. "We've scheduled renovations," she said, faster than usual, as if expecting compliance this time. "Contractors, barn, driveway, fencing, irrigation, house. Nathan and I will live on-site part-time. You may relocate comfortably. All expenses covered. Freedom." I let her words pass like wind through the leaves, touching nothing, settling into nothing. Silence carried authority. Dust rose behind her as she walked back to her car. The estate exhaled. Nathan and I continued our rhythm, gloves on, pruners in hand, rows tended, soil checked, irrigation inspected, the orchard, the estate, alive and patient, witnessed our quiet diligence. Weeks passed. The rhythm became second nature. Work. Quiet observation, presence, patience. Then came a subtle shift. A note tucked under the doorframe of the back hall, handwritten. No signature. "You cannot stop what is coming." I held it, letting the words settle in the calm center I had cultivated. Nathan watched silently. I folded the note, placed it in the safe box alongside the letters, deeds, and protective envelopes Henry had delivered. Preparation, patience, presence. Not confrontation, but readiness. That evening, under the elm tree, Nathan finally broke the silence. "Marin," he said softly, "do you think they'll keep coming?" I touched the chain around my neck. "Brass cool. They may." "But the estate teaches," I replied. "Some doors cannot be opened with metal alone. Presence, patience, understanding. These are the keys," he nodded. The orchard whispered around us. Wind threading through branches, petals stirring. Presence, patience, understanding. Weeks flowed in this rhythm. Then one morning, gravel shifted sharply. Tires approaching faster, heavier. Nathan paused mid-row. Only one car, one figure, but this time the tension felt different. I approached the gate slowly. It was Elena, alone again, clipboard in hand. Her lips were tight, her eyes sharper than ever. I opened the gate. "We need to finalize the estate plans," she said, voice rehearsed, but edged with a hint of frustration. "Contractors, renovations, upgrades, part-time residents. You can relocate comfortably. All expenses covered. Freedom." I remained silent. The orchard listened. Dust rose behind her as she walked back to her car. The estate exhaled. Later, Nathan and I walked the southern orchard rows, gloves on, pruners in hand. He moved confidently now, learning, adapting, respecting the estate's rhythm. I observed, coffee in hand, heart steady, quiet pride growing. That night, after the sun dipped behind the orchard, Nathan asked again, softly, "Will the keys ever be mine?" I touched the chain brass against my skin. "When you're ready," I said, "not just to own what they unlock." Understanding passed between us without further words. The next morning, a new letter arrived. Official, typed, more formal than before. Legal inquiry, explicit challenge. I read it carefully, letting the words settle in the quiet of the back hall. Nathan stood beside me, silent. We did not speak. Some battles are won not in haste, but in presence, preparation, and patience. I placed the letter in the safe metal box, alongside the letters, deeds, notarized clauses, protective envelopes. Protection, I reminded myself. Guard it. Preserve what is yours. Days passed. Nathan continued in the orchard, learning, adapting, moving with the rhythm of the land. I observed quietly, coffee in hand, feeling steady, patient. Then came another sound. Tires on gravel, only one car, only one figure, Elena. Clipboard, rehearsed words, confident voice. I opened the gate. We've scheduled contractors, renovations, barn, driveway, fencing, irrigation, house. Nathan and I will live on-site part-time. You may relocate comfortably. All expenses covered. Freedom. I said nothing. Dust rose as she walked back to her car. The estate exhaled. Weeks passed in this quiet rhythm. Then a more aggressive intrusion. Gravel crunched sharply, multiple cars this time. Figures approached the estate, lawyers, contractors, another woman I did not recognize. All moving with rehearsed confidence, expecting compliance. Nathan and I stood on the porch, gloves on, pruners in hand. I opened the gate, letting silence stretch like a shield. One of the lawyers stepped forward. "Miss Hale, we are here to finalize the estate transition," he said. "Your son has requested it." I placed the brass key in my hand, chain around my neck. "You may leave," I said. The words were quiet, but the weight of the estate, the orchard, the house, pressed down behind them, unyielding. Confusion crossed their faces. They had rehearsed this moment, expected resistance, expected negotiation, expected hesitation. Instead, they met silence and certainty. One by one, they stepped back. Gravel crunched under retreating feet. The estate exhaled. Nathan and I walked the orchard, gloves on, pruners in hand, presence, patience, understanding, the language of the land, of trust, of legacy. That evening, under the elm tree, the sun spilling gold across rows of pear and apple trees, Nathan asked once more, "Will the keys ever be mine?" I touched the chain. "Brass cool. When you're ready," I said, "not just to own what they unlock." He nodded. Understanding passed silently. Weeks passed in quiet rhythm, the orchard alive, patient, thriving. Then one morning, unexpected, a car approached. Gravel under tires, slow, deliberate. Nathan paused mid-row, only one figure. I approached the gate. It was Logan alone, hair unkempt, eyes shadowed, shirt wrinkled, hands in pockets. He did not speak immediately. I stepped aside, letting him onto the porch. He moved slowly, hesitated. I poured coffee, handed him a mug. He took it with both hands. "Thank you," he said finally, voice low. She left, I thought. I let the silence stretch. The orchard, the trees, the wind, they bore witness. Then he spoke finally. "Marin, I let her speak for me, decide for me. I was wrong." I nodded, understanding without words. Presence, patience, understanding. The estate had taught him what words alone could not. That evening, we walked the orchard together, gloves on, pruners in hand. He did not move back into the house yet. He worked with me, side by side, learning the rhythm, absorbing the lessons, respecting the estate. Weeks passed like this, quiet, steady. Coffee in the morning, work in the fields, observing, teaching only when necessary. Trust and understanding growing silently. Then, one evening, under the elm tree, he asked quietly, "Will the keys ever be mine?" I touched the chain. Brass cool, familiar. "When you're ready," I said. "Not just to own what they unlock." He nodded. The orchard whispered around us. The estate exhaled. Presence, patience, understanding. The keys remained, weight and meaning shared, lighter because trust had grown. The estate held firm, alive, patient, ours. Some doors cannot be opened with metal alone. Preparation, patience, presence. These are the keys. The orchard had never felt quieter. Yet the silence was heavy, charged, as if it knew the final confrontation had passed, but the reverberations were still settling into the soil. Nathan and I moved through the rows in the early morning light, gloves on, pruners in hand, letting the rhythm of the trees, the soil, the sun guide us. Each branch we trimmed, each root we examined, felt like a conversation with the estate itself. I glanced down at the brass key resting against my collarbone. Warm in the morning sun, a tangible weight of legacy, trust, and authority. For weeks it had reminded me of patience and presence, the lessons the orchard had whispered, the boundaries enforced without confrontation. Gravel crunched behind us, my chest tightened, not out of fear but instinct. Only one car, only one figure, Elena, alone. Clipboard in hand, heels clicking sharply against the gravel, voice rehearsed and calculated. She stopped at the gate. I opened it, letting the weight of silence speak for me. "We need to finalize the transition," she said, voice brisk, eyes scanning the orchard as though possession could be claimed by inspection. "Contractors are scheduled. Renovations, barn, driveway, fencing, irrigation, house. Nathan and I will live on-site part-time. You can relocate comfortably. All expenses covered. Freedom." I let her words pass like wind through the trees. The orchard absorbed them, indifferent to her rehearsed confidence, patient in its quiet power. Dust rose behind her as she walked away. The estate exhaled, steady, unshaken. Nathan and I continued our work. Gloves on, pruners in hand, the rhythm of the land held us. Presence, patience, understanding. Weeks passed. Then came the unmistakable crunch of tires, gravel under pressure. Only one car this time. Only one figure. Logan. Alone. Hair disheveled, eyes shadowed, shirt wrinkled, hands in pockets. He did not speak at first, just stood at the edge of the orchard, hesitant as though stepping into a place he had once taken for granted required permission, acknowledgement, and humility. I walked toward him, coffee in hand. He accepted it with both hands, careful, deliberate. Silence stretched between us. He spoke finally, voice low, hesitant. She left. I said nothing. Logan exhaled a long, shuddering breath. I let him speak. I let her speak for me. Decide for me. I was wrong. I understood without words. Some lessons are not taught by arguments or confrontation, but by presence, observation, and the quiet insistence of legacy. That morning, we walked the orchard together, gloves on, pruners in hand. He followed my rhythm, side by side, silent but attentive, learning what the estate had always tried to teach: respect, patience, stewardship. Days passed like this. No intrusion, no letters, no lawyers. The orchard, the house, the estate, all alive, patient hours. The brass key rested against my chest, cool and familiar. Some doors cannot be opened with metal alone. Preparation, patience, presence. These are the keys. Weeks passed, sunlight moving across the orchard, casting long shadows, highlighting dust, petals, soil. Nathan worked quietly, steadily, gloves on. Pruners in hand, Logan observed, learning without words, absorbing without argument. One evening, after stacking firewood, we sat beneath the elm tree, sun dipping low, spilling gold across the rows of pear and apple trees. Logan finally spoke again, softer, uncertain. Will the keys ever be mine? I reached up, touched the chain around my neck, brass cool against my skin. When you're ready, I said, not just to own what they unlock. Understanding passed silently. The orchard whispered around us, wind threading through branches, petals stirring, presence, patience, understanding. That night, I placed the key beside my bed, feeling the weight, meaning, time, eyes, and legacy shared, lighter, not less significant, because trust had grown. The estate exhaled. Days passed quietly. Mornings in the orchard, afternoons in the fields, evenings under the elm tree. Coffee, gloves, pruners, observation, correction when necessary, guidance, patience. Nathan, Logan, both learning, absorbing, respecting. Then unexpectedly a letter arrived. No envelope, formal letterhead, typed words. A final legal inquiry. Polite yet unmistakable in tone. Nathan watched silently as I read it. We did not speak. Preparation, patience, presence. Not confrontation, but readiness. I placed it in the metal box with the letters, deeds, and protective envelopes. Protection, guard it. Preserve what is yours. That night, the orchard seemed to breathe around us. Dust motes floated in the lamplight, petals stirred in the breeze. I held the brass key, cool, steady, tangible proof that some things, some legacies, cannot be stolen, only entrusted and understood. The next morning, gravel crunched under tires. Only one car, only one figure, Elena. Clipboard in hand, voice rehearsed. I opened the gate. We've scheduled contractors. Renovations, upgrades, barn, driveway, fencing, irrigation, house. Nathan and Logan will live on-site part-time. You may relocate comfortably. All expenses covered. Freedom. I let the words pass through, absorbed by the orchard, reaching nothing. Dust rose behind her as she walked away. The estate exhaled. Silence reclaimed its authority. Days turned into weeks. The orchard, the fields, the house, all alive, patient, ours. Nathan and Logan learned the rhythm. Presence, patience, understanding. Coffee in the morning, work in the fields. Observation, silent guidance. The brass key rested on its chain. Weight and meaning shared. Lighter because trust had grown. One evening, under the elm tree, Logan asked again, quietly, "Will the keys ever be mine?" I reached up, touched the chain, brass cool. "When you're ready," I said, "not just to own what they unlock." Understanding passed silently. Weeks passed in quiet rhythm. Mornings in the orchard, afternoons pruning, evenings under the elm. The estate held us, guided us. Then one morning, gravel shifted differently. Tires approaching, one car, one figure, a lawyer familiar from previous visits, papers in hand, confident, rehearsed. I opened the gate. "Miss Hale, we are here to finalize the estate transition," he said. "Your son has requested it." I placed the brass key in my hand, chain around my neck. "You may leave," I said. The weight of presence, patience, understanding pressing down behind my words. The orchard, the house, the estate itself lending authority. Confusion flashed across his face. Rehearsed confidence met unyielding silence and certainty. Gravel crunched as he retreated. The orchard exhaled. Nathan and Logan and I moved through the rows together, gloves on, pruners in hand. Work silent, steady, shared. The estate, alive, patient, ours. That evening, the sun dipped behind the orchard, long shadows stretching across soil and petals. Nathan and Logan walked with me, side by side, pruners in hand, gloves worn, observing, learning. "Will the keys ever be mine?" Logan asked again, soft, respectful. I touched the chain. "Brass cool." "When you're ready," I said, "not just to own what they unlock." Understanding passed silently. Presence, patience, understanding. The orchard whispered, wind threading through leaves, petals stirring. The estate exhaled. Days turned into weeks. Mornings, afternoons, evenings, all steady, quiet, alive. No more intrusions, no more letters, no more rehearsed words. Nathan and Logan moved with respect, understanding, absorbing the rhythm. I observed, coffee in hand, heart steady, confident. The brass key rested against my chest, weight and meaning shared, lighter because trust had grown. That night, under the elm tree, Logan finally smiled. Small, hesitant, but genuine. Presence, patience, understanding. Legacy preserved, lessons learned. The orchard, the house, the estate, all alive, patient hours. The brass key rested, tangible proof that some doors cannot be opened with metal alone. They are opened when understanding, respect, and trust converge. The next morning, the sun broke through in golden streaks across dew-drenched rows. Nathan and Logan worked side by side in quiet harmony. Coffee on the porch, pruners in hand, gloves worn. Observation, guidance, lessons passed gently, silently. The estate held us steady, patient, alive. That evening, I watched the sun dip behind the orchard, golden light spilling across soil, petals, branches. I touched the chain around my neck. Brass cool, steady, meaningful. Some doors cannot be opened with metal alone. Presence, patience, understanding. The orchard whispered, exhaled, alive. And finally, the estate, the orchard, the house, the legacy, the keys, they were ours. Not because of confrontation, not because of fear, not because of money or contracts or rehearsed words. They were ours because we understood. We were present. We were patient. And we had been steady, always steady. The brass key rested against my collarbone, lighter than ever, not because it mattered less, but because it was no longer held alone. Legacy preserved, trust shared, lessons learned. The orchard exhaled, the estate held firm, and finally, after all the intrusion, all the letters, all the rehearsed arguments and threats, peace settled into the rows, the house, the fields. Nathan and Logan and I walked through the orchard together. Gloves on, pruners in hand, the estate breathing with us, alive, patient, ours. I'm really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen so you can choose what to watch next.